Great. And we're live. So welcome everybody to this remote interview. My name is Lisette and I'm interviewing people and companies who are doing great things remotely. And today on the line, I'm super excited. I have Clare McNamara from the UK. And Clare, you're the co-founder of Global Team Coaches, which is focusing on global teams who deliver working relationships that deliver results. I think I may have gotten that slightly off. Tell us what Global Team Coaches does really quick, and then we'll dive into what does your virtual office look like.
Sure, Global Team Coaches. What we do is we support, we create unique working, sorry, I'm going to get it wrong myself now. We create unique environments where global teams deliver great results through working relationships, through the connection piece, really. That's the really very important thing to get right, which is harder to do when you're working virtually.
For sure, and we're going to totally dive into that, but I want to start with, what does your virtual office look like? What do you need to get your work done?
Well, that's an interesting question. I was looking at some of your other podcasts and people were very factual. When I looked at that, I thought, I need colour. I need colour and technology because that's how my brain is. So I just I'm a really big picture thinker and I need to be able to see things all at once. I'm very comfortable seeing patterns and connecting up things which other people don't do. So as long as I've got my technology, I've got some connectivity and I've got my iPhone with my apps on. I'm on my PC at the moment, but so I can see where everything is all at once, I would say. That's what I need.
I have never had that answer before, but you're right. So an overview of just everything that you need to deal with sort of within the view. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and also it's got to be easy. I'm great one for shortcuts. Don't ask me to do something that takes a long time.
I think a lot of people undervalue how important it is to keep things simple, because before you know it, you could have a million tools, a million gadgets, and a whole bunch of things weighing your desk down. Yeah, and your brain also. Interesting. So let's talk about Global Team Coaches, because it sounds really interesting what you do. Let's dive into a little bit more about what you guys do, what approach you take, and why you started it.
Well, that's interesting. We started it because, there's an awful lot of really good work that goes on with teams across the world where, an issue will be recognised. Well, we don't know each other well enough. That's probably affecting productivity. Let's get everybody together. We'll go off site. We'll probably spend a lot of money doing lots of really good and interesting exercises, and we'll all get to know each other better. But then when we disperse and go back to our different places across the globe, or even it can be even within the national boundary, but nevertheless we're in different places, we're in different offices, and then we don't communicate with each other so well, and we're not really using all that kind of great learning. So we wanted to take it and look at it from a different angle, in terms of, rather than there's a lot of 360 degree assessments that go on. Rather than do it from that point of view, getting the team to look at the team, so as an entity. And so what we do, we've really done a lot of research into what is considered world-class standard now in terms of how teams behave. What are we seeing with the very effective teams? What are they doing in order to get the results that they need? So we've developed a very comprehensive assessment. So we ask the team those questions based on the team as a whole. They feed back to us the data. We then drill down with some qualitative research as to what's really going on in terms of, what does that mean? What are you seeing? What would your team need to do in order to take it from a 4 to a 5, for example, to make that kind of really work? And then we'll take it through and take them on some coaching around whatever it is that's come out of that and what they want to work on. It could be about people not understanding each other's different behavioural preferences. It could be a cultural aspect. It could be a structural aspect. They haven't got the kit in order to work properly. But even if you just do the initial piece around asking questions and give people the time to breathe, because we know all the pressures, and we can talk about them in a minute about working virtually and globally, what comes out is completely amazing. And it's not us giving them the answers. because we don't know the answers, because we don't know that team. It's just having the time to think. We've just been working with a client now in the Netherlands, actually. Well, Netherlands and Germany, and absolutely amazing what they've now got to work on before they even get into the coaching piece.
Wow, I really like the concept of letting the team evaluate themselves and come up with their own solutions rather than it be sort of a top-down driven activity. And I would think, yeah, of course the team knows what solutions they need most of the time. I mean, because they have the best overview of all the politics and the personalities and the working structure. So why is that so uncommon? I mean, it seems like yeah, of course let the team do it, but I think it's pretty rare.
I think you're right. We did do quite a bit of research looking around. There are some organisations doing it, obviously. So there's the three of us. There's myself, there's another coach from the UK, and a coach from Germany. So we've got a bit of an international perspective there. I don't know why. I think perhaps when you look from the top, maybe we can get into the kind of women piece in a minute. It's no surprise most leaders of businesses are men. If you look at the statistics. And there can be a bit of, here's the problem, so what's the solution? Let's get someone in to solve it. So whether it's that kind of aspect, I don't know. Also, we all bring with us our individual global executive coaching experience where, you know, generally you will recognise that the best solutions come from the client themselves. If you attempt, it's okay occasionally if you explain what hat you're wearing, what role you're in to prompt, but generally if you want to get the sustainable results, it will be from that person. Right. So it's the same kind of principle, really, but it is just completely amazing what can come out of just a few simple questions, really.
Yeah, I really I wrote down when you said you're giving teams time to breathe. I really like that, and I want to dive into that a little bit more because you're right. You know, when I interview managers, I often hear them expressing fear over letting people go remote or working globally because they don't know what people are doing and they think they'll be lazy. And then when I interview the workers and the people who are working remotely or the freelancers, they're not struggling with being lazy. It's mostly how do I turn off? And
exactly.
You know, it's 24/7. We're working with global things. You could be working in the night or getting up early in the morning, and you know maybe it's not all day every day, but it's a lot. And so I always found it weird that managers think that remote workers aren't working, and remote workers are like, we can't turn off. So this time to breathe thing really stood out, and it sounds like you're seeing that a lot with teams, that they need the time to breathe.
Definitely, and especially if you've got teams that are round the clock, so they've got people from every continent, and it kind of never stops, the work never stops, there can be a real pressure to be, you know, a piece of work gets handed over and there's got to be then completed to hand over to, hand the baton on, if you like. And it can, or they're in back-to-back meetings, because what can happen is if the people are working from home or in a different location, they can feel almost obliged to be putting the back-to-back meetings. Oh, I better, you know, you're right, it's absolute opposite from not getting on with what they're supposed to. It's very rare to find people are lazy. It is the other way around, and they're overdoing it. And then if you're not careful, you get burnout. But I think there can be a fear from those issuing the work. I can't see what they're doing.
Right.
So that's why we want to move from presenteeism. We want to move from just to actually what are the outcomes, and then it doesn't matter. It kind of doesn't matter when you work, as long as you get the work done within reason. Obviously, sometimes you need everybody together in the same virtual space, obviously, and that's where you need to be really clever about making use of tools so that you're not completely overwhelmed by emails and those kind of things. It's 24/7. But it's also the lack of visual cues. That's another real challenge and an opportunity now with technology that can present itself to teams. That's one of the things that we picked up with one of these recent clients, that they had the technology but they weren't using it. They were relying on the telephone, and then of course you don't really know what's going on. You know.
That's funny. So why somebody decided that it was important for them to have the technology there. But then the onboarding of the team sounds like it fell short with actually getting people to use the technology that they had. And of course, people are going to fall back on the system that they know best. And telephone is super. We've all used telephone for ages and ages and ages. So I guess, yeah.
You're absolutely right. It's habitual, isn't it? We're kind of hardwired to do that. And it can feel like, if I'm going to go on to a Zoom or a Skype or something for a quick call, that might take me longer. So I'll just pick up the phone.
Right.
People are busy. It's not that they don't value it. It's just habit. But just breaking that habit by a little bit can make such a difference in having an opportunity to really see what's going on for someone on the other side of the world, or even in the next town it could be. But seeing somebody's face, which, let's face it, 10 years ago, I mean, I'm here in Dartmoor. Dartmoor's a national park, a very beautiful national park in Devon, in England. I'm right on the edge. I'm literally 2 minutes. I can go out walking there. So that's an advantage of working remotely. But it was only quite recently we've had the broadband, the bandwidth, should I say, that can do this.
Right. Right. And that's where things break down, is you absolutely have to have the connectivity in order to be able to communicate with the people that you're working with. Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned a couple of challenges, but I want to talk about the challenges that your clients are facing when they're coming to you. And you said lack of visual cues was definitely one of the challenges. So they're not relying on video calls or video conferencing, it sounds like, because otherwise they would have visual cues.
Well, they'll go on video conferencing for their regular meetings. And that's another interesting aspect, because if you look at some of the work that Howard Esbin has done with Pray Prelude, for example, and I've been working alongside him a little bit, what happens is that people dive into those without really having the training, because in some senses, communication technology is fairly intuitive, isn't it? But if you don't plan for it, you can get it so wrong. And we've all experienced those virtual video conference meetings, or even without the video conference. They're just awful because people keep cutting in and out. You can't hear them. There's an issue with the sound. You've got feedback and all those kind of things. So, and even if they get it right in the weekly meeting, let's say have a weekly meeting, it's the bits in between. It's what I call the water cooler moments. So if you're leading a co-located team, all of those things you come across a bit more naturally. You'll notice people are chatting here or in the car park or whatever, and you've got the opportunity, without having to think about it, to have an informal conversation.
Right.
When you're leading a virtual team, you have to, this is going to sound odd, you have to be proactive about creating informal and impromptu situations, and that takes a bit of a mindset shift.
Yeah.
You have to plan it almost, which sounds a bit odd.
Right, right. You have to plan your async, because you're not going to just accidentally bump into somebody online. So you actually have to plan to do it.
Protocol charter about ensuring all of those things are available, ensuring that people know that it's okay to hop onto Skype or Zoom or whatever. You're right with the connectivity here. You're looking like you've lost me. Have you lost me?
I haven't lost you. I'm still here.
Oh, that's okay. Because something came up. Your internet connection is unstable. I hope it's okay. Yeah. So, what was I saying? Help me out here. Where was I?
With the well, now I'm back onto connectivity. So now I've lost everybody watching. I've lost my train of thought too. But we were talking about the challenges, people diving into tools without having the training.
Yeah.
And then. Yeah, which I completely agree with, actually. And I think that some things seem very simple to people. Some things are intuitive to people, but people have different levels of what they're comfortable with and some things that are savvy to one person are not savvy to another. I have a great example. Is one of my neighbors is a 65-year-old man who just started learning the internet. And at first, I was just telling him simple commands like Control-C, Control-V. He's like, well, why is it called Control-V? Yeah. And when I start to think, I think, oh my gosh, I've been using Control-C, Control-V for 20 years now. I couldn't even remember why it was called control. I'm like, I guess these are the things you have to remember, but there's 100 things like this as he's learning how to use the computer that didn't occur to me. Like he didn't know how to hold the mouse. He'd just never done it before. So it really gave me empathy for the tools and people who are struggling with the tools. So you bring up a great point.
And you know, it's not just, sometimes you think, oh, all younger people can do it and older people like me can't. Well, I wouldn't say that's true either. I mean, there might be a trend there, but I'm really comfortable with technology. Don't always get it right, and sometimes we'll be on a, what we put together is like a protocol. So if we're going to have a meeting together, these are the things you need to do. As simple as wear a headset,
right?
Make sure it's the right kind of headset, and don't have 3 other people wandering around behind you or talking, because that will kill it as well. And you have to really break it down, because like you just said, it can seem obvious to you. You've been doing it forever, but it's not obvious to everyone else. Or think about what you got behind you. We were working with one guy, and behind him was the door to a toilet.
Right.
No, let's see if let's reposition that, not the toilet, but him, because it doesn't give off, the right impression. So
Indeed. I attended a webinar once, and the guy behind him had a turquoise waterbed with a whole bunch of, like, a super messy room. And I thought, interesting, he's giving a webinar. He was very smart, had really good things to say, but I didn't hear anything that he said. I had to go back and rewatch it because I was so distracted by the background. So it actually, those little things, I think you're 100% right. They really matter in online meetings, especially. We have to pay attention to some of the details that we didn't have to pay attention to when we were in person. So yeah.
So, and we've been on a learning curve with it too as a team. And it's not until you do things that you can actually necessarily see what's happening. You might be kind of looking down like here and you don't realise you are, which is what you need to be doing is, as far as you can, look at the camera anyway. So, or look at the person that you're talking to. So,
Yeah, indeed. So I'd like to move on to talking about women in tech, because I want to make sure with our interview that we don't run out of time before we talk about women in tech. Because it says on your LinkedIn profile that you are inspiring women leaders to recognize, own, and showcase their unique contribution to business success. And I definitely caught my eye. And so what about women in tech? What is it that you found?
What I found, it's really interesting, this, because and this has been learned through personal experience, really. And I've always had gifts and something to bring to the world, but for a long time I didn't really recognize that anybody else would be interested. Isn't that interesting? And like I said to you earlier on, we don't want to stereotype too much, but there is pretty convincing evidence now that in general, men and women look at things in different ways. And for example, there was a study by Hewlett-Packard, I think. It was an internal study about promotions, and it was published a couple of years back, which observed that on the whole, when men are looking at the possibility of applying for a promotion, they'll look at the job spec, and if they can do 65% of what's on there, they'll go for it. I'll apply for this, it'll be all right. Now, what do you think the percentages for women?
I'm going to guess 90%.
Well, the study said it was closer to 100.
Oh my gosh.
On average, and there must be some divergence around that a little bit, but because somehow we tend to think we can't possibly do that, and as we know we can do it perfectly because there's too many people relying on us. We've got to get this right.
Right.
There's actually also something there about we're not so good on the whole, or I'd say I really like to do this, about the networking piece. There's the tradition of the old boys network, and men are kind of a bit better at that and kind of really comfortable doing that. Women, not so much, but it's such a the irony is that women are better at collaborating.
I can see there's less of a maybe focus driven, more of a well-rounded, is everybody okay? How is everybody doing in the room focus?
There's a piece of research I noticed around noticing when women leaders are better than men leaders. And it's where there's more need for complexity and collaboration. Because women tend to be, I can send you the research, tend to be better at building the relationships. They tend to be better at wanting to know, is everyone all right in the room? The focus is on other. I'm making this sound very black and white. I don't mean to, so I apologise any men who think I'm anti-men. It's not true at all, because we need everyone. We need parity. That the research is saying the closer we get to gender parity at board level, the more commercial success, the better our performance will be and more sustainable as well by a long way. That's my message. But in terms of tech, of course, there are fewer women. I've just been partly responsible for the launch of Women in Aerospace Europe UK. That was last week at the Royal Society in London. That was, yay, it was really, really good. We had a big turnout, and we're hoping to do lots more there with that. So it's often when women are in men's worlds, that accentuates it even more, because women don't, they're frustrated, they want to do more, and they want to, if you like, break the glass ceiling. But even sometimes when they do in those worlds, they're thinking, well, I've broken the glass ceiling, but it doesn't feel any different. It feels quite aggressive.
It's a different style, it seems like. It's
where there are so many more men than women, that's what can happen. And it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, because human beings tend to be comfortable with their own. So that's why if we don't do anything around gender parity, I think it's going to be more than 100 years. I think the latest research is before we get it.
Right.
We'll just, because, senior men set in kind of ways, they'll just recruit more of the same.
Right.
Right. And not realise the power of diverse thought, which is, where you're coming from in terms of collaboration. What opens that is amazing, isn't it? When you get different streams of thought and different perspectives. It's all about perspective.
Right, which is one of the biggest arguments for more diversity in the workplace of all kinds of people. And I bet actually, and this leads us sort of into a really good discussion on culture, because I noticed that one of your strengths was cross-cultural collaboration. So the women-men divide is just one of the different kinds of diversity. I mean, it's the simplest one to look at, right? Because that's just super simple. But then, when we start to talk about the divide amongst different cultures and bringing in different people from different areas of the world, like if you have a team member from Vietnam and somebody from San Francisco and somebody from Budapest, all of a sudden you've got this like very different world experience coming together to solve problems. That's got to be ideal.
And it's just fascinating what happens. I was working with a client 3 or 4 years back who went on a short, I think it was a 6-month contract. She went to work with one of the big airlines in Singapore. And it was a bit of a tech role. She wasn't tech herself. It was more kind of strategy around how they were using technology and websites to generate new business. And I was having one of my regular calls with her, and she said, "Oh, Claire," she said, "it's so annoying, it's so frustrating." She said, "The Hong Kong Chinese, they are so childish." I said, "Right, okay."
Okay, hold on.
Okay. So anyway, cut a long story short, we kind of unpicked that a little bit, and I got her to kind of explain what was going on. And of course, the focus there on hierarchy and not losing face meant that, so she was used to, she's from the UK, she was used to, got a problem, everybody talk about it, solve it, move on. And but there, no, they had to talk to their Hong Kong Chinese boss, who talked to his boss, who then talked to her boss, and then it came back down to her, and it seemed to her anyway, to take an awfully long time to get anything done, and it was really, really frustrating. But once I got her to look at, I mean, you would think everybody would know that, but then that's going back to the argument we had earlier about people don't necessarily know that. If they haven't experienced, it's not deliberate. She wasn't deliberately casting aspersions on them. It's just that's how it presented to her at the time. Once she understood that, and also they knew she wasn't going to be there for very long. Well, 6 months.
So they were going to just tolerate her until
because for them, building trust is a much longer term operation thing to do. So that it was complex, and that was just in one kind of microcosm, really. But when you've got a team from all over the world, are people really saying what they feel, or are they saving face? Yeah.
Right, and the different way of expressing oneself can really confuse the other culture. I mean, the Dutch, for example, I live in the Netherlands, and the Dutch are extremely blunt and really straightforward, and it can very much shock people who aren't used to it. It seems rude, and it's just a way of
and they shut down. The other person will shut down if they don't realise that person is that's just how they are.
So how do you start to unpack this I know there are many, many different ways, and culture and global teams is it's like a PhD in and amongst itself. So I realize this is a big question, but we can just take it from whatever angle that you want. But how do you start to create awareness on global teams about the different cultures that they have on the team?
I think the first step is, as I was outlining earlier, really getting a starting point about what the team thinks about itself. And where are these strengths? What is that telling them about, so they're strong and they've had these successes. Why is that? Is that around collaboration? Is that around them being able to talk to each other, and just kind of drilling down until they look? So our focus is always very much on strengths. But of course, you also need to look at limitations. So anything that's presented as a problem, stand back and just work at what does that mean? And then we can bring in and raise some awareness about cultural difference. Stories are a really good thing to do, rather than we're the experts, we know all about cultural difference and we're going to tell you. That doesn't work. There's a quite good tool, the Hofstede cultural GPS. Don't know if you've seen that. That can be quite good. I mean, you wouldn't want to take it because everybody's different, but it gives you a starting point to ask some questions as to what's going on here in terms of, as a national culture, how do we view hierarchy? How acceptable is it? There are some people at the top of the pile and some people at the bottom. What's our focus in terms of, are we kind of very nuclear in terms of we just look after us and there's few people around us, or is it much wider in terms of how we look after families and get other people involved? There's I think it's 5 or 6 dimensions he has. That's a really good starting point to open people's eyes. There might be a different story here.
Right, because you don't know what you don't know. So like in one country, it might be, perfectly normal, and you would have no idea to even ask. So I like that, using these different models. There isn't probably one model that does everything perfectly, but like a starting point for starting the conversation, then trying different things. I really like that approach.
And then, of course, we'll use some kind of psychometric profiles. So one of the ones that we use, and I know you're familiar with the play Prelude.
I was just going to ask you about it because I saw in your profile that you are a certified Prelude facilitator, and I'm a huge fan of Howard Espin and the play Prelude tool. So let's dive into that. So it's a psychometric tool, and then
What it does, it enables you in a very short space of time, which is great because that's just one of the aspects here. People haven't got loads and loads of time to A, do it, and B, read a 100-page report. It's very intuitive. You do it online and you drag and drop, and you're answering questions as to how you would normally behave. And it uses nature as a metaphor, earth, air, fire and water to help you understand a little bit more where your preferences are. Now, of course, we all have all of these traits within us, but some of us might be more kind of let's get and do it. Some of us are more we need to plan it. Some of us are really looking for the knowledge. It kind of and there are different combinations of that. And then how do you bring that all together into who you are at your core? Because it's all really, and that relates back to my work when I'm working more on an individual level, is who am I really deep down? And once you know that, you can then start to ask the question, well, okay, what is my unique combination of skills and how do I uniquely add value? Because it's usually about the combination.
Right.
Nobody's saying that because I'm a big picture thinker, I'm not the only person in the world who's a big picture thinker. Right. But I'm the only person in the world with my experience of that, plus the people side, plus a very interesting family with neurodevelopmental gifts, which has helped me really see difference in a really, really deep way. I'm the only one with that whole combination of things. So I bring something very specific. And then what happens with Prelude then is it's like that's called your I-Star, and then you start to do a combination, a words and images exercise where you present it pictorially. And then when you've done that, you combine everybody's and you practice collaboration in the moment. So as well as getting a clearer, a better feel for what's important to everyone and what's important to you as a team, what do you look like as a team, if you like, you're also practicing some tech and virtual skills as to what it's like to collaborate in the moment. There's other ones we use as well, but that's particularly good for tech teams. For example, tech teams, I don't want to stereotype obviously, but sometimes tech teams are very, very good at the tech and haven't had the opportunity, let's say, to look more at the softer skills. So that can be really, really useful. Right. And then you can see at the end, well, where are we strong? Where are the preferences? What are the risks then? Or what are the strengths in having a team like this? What are the risks? You know, maybe we've got very few people who do the follow through and actually get the stuff done.
Right. Or if you have a whole team of people that are not extroverted at all, and somebody needs to do the selling and the marketing, but there's
exactly
on the team with that strength in there. Yeah, what it really highlighted for me through the Prelude experience was not only what my strengths were, but what the strengths of my teammates were. So I knew how to approach them. Like one woman was extremely analytical, and I didn't know that actually, and just by a couple of weeks of working with her in the beginning. And then when I learned, like, oh, she's analytical, like if I approach her with a problem, like she would really appreciate having the pros and cons defined and what I think, and she wants more detail, whereas somebody else doesn't want that detail. So it really highlighted for me, like, oh, okay, so in my dealings with others, if I know what they're like, I can then tailor.
It's about tweaking, and nobody's saying it's about changing your whole personality, because that would be counterproductive too. We'll just get electrochemical resistance, and then eventually we'll get ill. That's another kind of whole topic to look at. But if you can recognize what's important to other people, and in that scenario, for example, you might be wanting to say, look, I've got all the detail if you want it, so have it ready. You don't want to be going there remembering all the detail. I don't know what you like, but I wouldn't. That would drive me mad.
I wouldn't either.
I do recognize that for some people that's really, really important. Or for some people, they just want it. What are the key points? Very kind of goal orientated. For other people, you've really got to take a little bit more time and be very polite, and really make sure that you get the message over that you are really interested, and not just for the sake of it, but genuinely interested in how people are feeling about things and how you kind of draw them along. So there's quite a few tools that can do that. But you're right, I do like the Prelude from that.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big fan. It seems very well rounded with the visual aspects, the psychometric aspects. So yeah, for folks listening, it's playprelude.com, and you can check it out. By the wonderful Howard Espin, who I interviewed in one of the first interviews that I did.
Oh, was he one of your first? Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the first. I was very lucky to meet him so early on. Very, very lucky. So we're running out of time, but I have two more questions that I want to ask. And the one is, what advice would you have for people who are just starting out? Like for people who are just working on a global team, where would you start?
I would say put the time into understanding everyone on the team. It's probably a small team to start with, but put the time in to understand each other, to be clear on your why. It can feel a bit obvious, but it isn't sometimes. Can you articulate that? What is it that you are offering to clients? What specific need are you hoping to address, or what specific client group needs your help? And then making the link between who you are as a team and how you can really kind of drive that forward. If you're not clear on that passion bit and the why, then and now that can be challenging sometimes, because people are so keen, they want to get on with the technical, I can do this, so let's go out and deliver it. But it doesn't work well. I think you come a cropper later on, because then you're not clear and then your clients aren't clear.
And it kind of comes full circle back to giving our teams and ourselves room to breathe
Yeah.
in order for, especially in the virtual world, where we tend to be very results oriented. And in some ways, we really have to slow that down a little bit, give ourselves room to breathe and get to know each other and as people and what we each uniquely offer, the value that we each uniquely offer. That's pretty good advice.
The other thing is that each of you as individuals, don't skip what do you need to be strong? How well do you need to be to do your best work? Women can be a bit prone to this. I think they end up trying to please everyone. And I know from personal experience that doesn't work. You can get ill. And it's not worth it. And there's more of a pressure to do that when you're working globally, like we've already said, but it's a bit more 24/7. You need to stand back and get the perspective. So that's why I'm lucky I can go and have a walk on Dartmoor. And just, there's something about the brain walking and you're not thinking about something, but then you get a great idea.
For sure. Can't tell you the number of times that I've been out running and I've had to say like, okay, like note to self, when I get home, don't forget this genius idea I just had. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So last question is, if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about Global Team Coaches and what you offer and what you do, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Okay, well, my email is clare@globalteamcoaches.com. That's CLARE, and then globalteamcoaches.com. Our website is globalteamcoaches.com. We also have a Twitter account, and it's at Global Team Cafe with a capital G, a capital T, and a capital C. And the cafe is because we've developed a process, and it's linked to what we want to do is create this unique working environment where people can come in and out and really share and breathe. And one day when we can really make the most of virtual reality, almost have a cup of coffee.
Totally.
It's at cafes, those kind of environments, collaborative environments, is where that's where the magic happens. So, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well, Clare McNamara.
Great. I think that's where we found each other, actually, was LinkedIn.
It was, yeah.
Lovely resources that we have. So great. And I'll put all of this in the show notes so that people know how to find you. So Thank you so much for all of your wisdom and insights today. I only got to half of the question, not even half. So I'm sure we could talk much, much more. But for the sake of the podcast, we'll end it here. Thank you again for all of your time. And until next time, everybody, be powerful.